Advisory Committee meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. on Monday, the 24th, and the meeting is being recorded. Let's see. We'll go around and do a introduction of the members. I'll call your name and then just acknowledge. So Phil Posner.
Here. Posner.
Laura Davis.
Here.
Kathleen Ogden Fraser. Faster, sorry.
So that's fine. I'm here.
Michelle Cardinal.
Here, present.
And I'm Nick Pappas. I'm here. And Laura, did I get you? The way the names jump around in the participants list drives me nuts. You start working up from the bottom and then they all shift. Oh, and Dan Schrager.
Right here.
Thank you.
Okay, Nick, can I ask you to wait for me for just 1 second?
Sure, go ahead.
Just grab a pad so I can start taking some notes.
It's like you're changing your clothes.
Important
And
that Phil
that's
is ready.
It's funny, I can type faster than I can write. So when I take minutes, I have to type. It's good. I get so frustrating trying to write things out by hand. Okay. Phil left a ghost in his place.
Okay, there we go. Oh, that's better.
Okay. Okay.
I'm a child of the Jimmy Carter era, and we keep the heat low in this house.
Hello to you.
Okay, let's see. The minutes. So maybe some teething problems with the minutes. So let's see. The minutes went out. I'm not sure if everyone saw them. I think part of the issue was they were appended to a memo that had other stuff in it. So at least 1 or 2 people may have missed that, for which apologies. Next time we do the minutes, they will go out alone with nothing else in the package, in the email.
Phil just sent out a revised version of them about 25 minutes ago, I think.
Right, and maybe we should wait till, has everyone looked at them? Because we didn't get a lot of, Phil didn't, no, everyone hasn't. Okay. There's no rush on this. Some committees take 2 or 3 months to get the minutes approved. I hope to do a lot better than that, but we're just starting up. So what we'll do is, if you haven't gotten them, just send an email to Phil telling them you didn't get them. He will, but you sent out the revised ones to everyone today, right, Phil?
Yes.
Yeah, they just came through.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I sent was a version in MS Word, which had your notes in it and some highlighted changes to reflect your comments.
Okay.
Okay.
And Dan, did someone else send something? Dan or someone send in some comments also?
No.
No. Okay.
Phil, just to
Okay.
clarify, the stuff that's yellow highlighted is Nick's correction and the red is what's being struck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's mostly either typos,
Yeah.
or I missed a word, wrote the wrong word. And then there's one place where I inserted where I think I had intended to put in an idea, which was that the town, the CPD and the planning department were working with MAPC and the MPO. And that was an idea that was discussed, but didn't quite make it into writing. So I tried to express that.
Okay.
So
Yes.
everyone, look at the revised minutes that Phil sent out, and we'll vote on that next meeting. If you have any corrections, if you have facility with Word, you can use that, the insert comments feature to put the comments right in the document, or else you can just do them separately in a cover email, whatever's easier for you. Okay.
And then by that time, I'll also have the following meeting minutes drawn up.
Yeah.
So there'll be 2 sets.
Pretty much it's a standard around the town committees and select board and others to use Word as the application for doing this. So let's stay with that.
Okay.
That works for everyone.
And then, eventually I think what will happen is that they'll make their way back to Erin and she'll post them up
Right.
online so that they'll be available for people.
Okay. So I did want to talk about open meeting protocols and what to do. I'm not sure if everyone took the session, the Zoom session the town clerk did in the fall. It sounds, I'm seeing heads shake. Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I just want to go over my understanding of it and the way I intend to do it, which is that what we're trying to avoid is anything that might be construed as a substantive discussion about anything that has come before the committee or might reasonably be interpreted to be about to come before the committee. We don't want to have any substantive discussions offline outside of committee meetings. So it's okay for me to send out, it's okay for anyone to send out a thought, an idea. Hey, here's something I think we should discuss. Here's my idea, okay? That's fine. Giving feedback to it in an email response to that person or certainly to the whole committee is getting out of line because that's the beginning of a discussion. And we want to avoid that, okay? So, it's better for the person who wants to send out something like that, a thought, an idea for the committee to think about, to send it out and make a request that we put it on an agenda for discussion, okay? And then I'll work with Erin to figure out what's the appropriate way to do that. So, are there any questions about that? I know there are gray areas in this. So if you have a question, just ask me. And as Phil did with the thing he was doing on the Reformatory Branch Trail, he had a question about interpretation. He just called up the Attorney General's office. There's a hotline there. If anyone ever has a question, it's fine to call them and they'll give you a written determination if you like. Okay. Okay.
Can I just make one point, just so
Sure.
that it's clear and for the record? So the agency that deals with the open meeting law and ethics is the Ethics Commission as opposed to the AG's office.
Okay.
But they have a legal counsel who does exactly what you just said. So that was the person that I spoke with, was the
Right.
state
And
ethics commission.
do you know offhand, I bet you have the number in your contact book. or something.
Yeah, I can send that around.
Yeah.
That would be great. So yeah,
And-
you can send that as an email. Don't anyone respond. It's fine to respond to it, I suppose, but don't. So yeah, if you could send that around, that would be helpful.
Yep.
Okay, next thing. Oh, yes, Michelle.
So just then a final maybe question on process then. Would it be if people are sending things, some people might be sending things directly to you and some people might send agenda topics to the whole group. Would it be, maybe it would help me, or if people agree, could we have like one official email that maybe goes out the day before a meeting or like 24 hours or something that has like the agenda, but also has all the materials just to make sure we have everything versus,
Yes,
sort of.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to that. It's been partly with Erin being away for a couple of weeks. It's been a little bit
Right.
awkward. So that's what I would like to see. It's what I've seen in other committees, which is if we can get a materials packet together, and that would be ideal. So
Great.
that's what we will move towards. Okay. Okay. So one thing,
Laura has a question.
Laura, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just, maybe this is a question for Erin, but I wonder if we might also have a Google group so that we can more easily separate out, emails that are sent to us as a whole group. I don't know if other committees do that. I don't know if that's common
No,
practice.
I would say that's a violation of open meeting law. You mean us to have a Google group or something?
Yeah, so if
Or-
we wanted to email this whole group, we would just email, like tca@googlegroups.com, and then it would go
No,
to all of
no.
us with a prefix that could say, do not reply to this email, as a good reminder.
I'd rather.
Okay, that's
let's keep
fine.
all of our communications through the email channel. So, and anything that could be construed of trying to get around that, the open meeting law would not be a good thing.
That's
Um,
certainly not my intent. It was actually
I know.
a way to prevent us from doing that, because it separates it out from your personal email address, so you're less likely to reply to it like a normal email. It's fine. It was just a suggestion. We can move on.
I'm probably not understanding it exactly, so. Yeah, if you think it's really good, maybe just convince me sometime. You can give me a call on that. We can talk about it, okay? I'm just not sure I get it. Okay. Okay, the other thing you may have seen flying around just before the meeting, the long lost Marcia Rasmussen memo that Terry has been referring to. At least the first generation of it has been found. And I just, before the meeting started, I saw something from Chris Carmody that sounded like maybe he had a revision to it that had been found. So we'll be catching up with that, okay, over the between now and the next meeting. It sounds like it's a list basically of things that Marcia's aware of or involved in that were either grants or projects that are underway related to transportation. So it's good stuff.
Nick, that was circulated already?
It just came around just like around 6:30. I saw it. I don't know exactly when it was sent out.
Okay.
It was an email from Marcia Rasmussen to Terry, and I don't know, Terry may not have forwarded it. If she didn't, I will forward it as soon as the meeting is over.
I
Okay.
haven't received it.
Neither have
Okay.
I.
Let me make a note. Okay. One other thing, we've started to get emails coming in through the website, people giving us input. The three recent ones were all about suggested improvements to public safety at Barrett's Mill Road near College Road. They're going to be doing some pavement work there. Public Works is going to be doing that this year, I believe. And some of the residents around there would like to see some improvements. So I've sent that information, forwarded it to Public Works, and am in the midst of finding out if that's, you know, what's within the scope of the work they're going to do. Sometime, I don't know about the details on this one. Sometimes the planned pavement improvements are minor in scope. Let's say they have a budget of 200,000, but the request may be for $100,000 or $200,000 improvement once it's planned out. So sometimes that's not practical, whereas some things they may be able to work into a small project like that. So I'm going to find that out, and that all falls, I think, within that whole topic of public safety projects that we were discussing last time. And then I guess on to the main topic. So today, the one purpose of today is to talk about what we might suggest to the select board for ARPA funded projects. I sent around an idea, and let's see, who was it? I got two from, was it from Laura?
Kathleen.
Kathleen, from Kathleen. I'll put up mine, and then you can present yours, and we can talk about all of them. I think what we'd like to do by the end of the evening is decide if we want to move any of these forward to the select board, and suggest that they use the ARPA funds for any of those projects. So let me see if I can get screen share going. I don't see Chris Carmody here, so I hope this is set up properly. I just have to find the right thing. No, that's not it. Oh, I hate this. Just a minute. Make sure it's running. Let me try this again. Sometimes I try this screen share and I don't see the application I'm using on the list. Ah, there we go. Okay. Well, there shouldn't be a subtitle. Okay, so this was the one I talked about last time. I changed it a little bit. Instead of talking about microtransit, I obtained from Marcia Rasmussen the actual grant proposal that had been made to the, I forget who the granting authority was, but that had been made in 2018 to fund what they had called a shuttle bus service. And what I'm suggesting is that be taken, revised as appropriate, for the circumstances. And it's based on this grant that was actually proposed and approved in 2018. Its basic elements were connecting the rail stations with the business areas around town. That means both West Concord, Concord Center, Thoreau Depot area, and also some outlying business areas, for instance, out towards the end of Virginia Road, where there are some businesses and educational, as an educational institution there. And also it said it would provide services for workers, for small businesses in Concord, getting people to work, such as that. And services for those without automobile access is sort of implied by the whole thing. It's possible this could be enhanced to provide some of the services to remote areas. It specifically did not have any sort of on-demand component to it. It was a fixed bus route approach, and but it covered good segments of the town. So it's possible it could be enhanced. I have no idea what would be involved. It obviously would add to the costs. But so the suggestion here is that we dust off that proposal, modify it as appropriate for the change times and to conform with the ARPA requirements, and put that forward. Any questions or comments on it? Yes, Laura.
First, a question. Is this separate from the Crosstown Connect, or is this Crosstown Connect?
This is separate from Crosstown Connect. This
And
is just
how would those two
intra-Concord.
programs, if those two programs were to move forward, how would they work together?
That would have to be defined. At the time that this was done, there were discussions. I think Marcia was having discussions with the Crosstown Connect communities, but I don't know sitting here whether or not there was a specific proposal at that point. They just felt that this particular proposal was something that they could get a grant for, I think. So they put it forward and they did get a grant for it.
But Crosstown Connect is also fixed route service, correct? So these would both be fixed route programs.
I believe that's true of Crosstown Connect. I'm not aware of all the details of Crosstown Connect. I think it's fixed route. I'm just not certain.
Yeah, I'm curious about this because I know that we're already paying into the Crosstown Connect program and we're lacking a vehicle. So we can't use the service. So I'm curious, if this would be duplication. Yeah, just how
I
those
should
two
send
things.
around. I will send around the proposal that Martha did.
This is the one that you sent around earlier, which was the Concord Shuttle proposal. Mass
Oh,
DOT
yeah. Did I
workforce
send it
trans-
already?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe that you did send that. It
Okay.
was a presentation from October
Right.
2019.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess my outstanding question is just like, how do those two programs play together? I would want to see the route maps and how they're planning to
Right.
meet
So
each other.
I think the substantive difference with respect to Crosstown Connect is this, if you read through the proposal, this service would be outsourced to a vendor who would provide the vehicles and such. So whereas Crosstown Connect was asking us to come up with a vehicle, I'm not sure of the details of that, because frankly, I thought Crosstown Connect was also an outsourced service. And in fact, I thought it was outsourced to the same company. So I just don't know the details in that. I've been out of touch with that for over 2 years.
And is Crosstown Connect on our agenda for tonight? I was just confused.
No, I didn't put it on the agenda for tonight. I mean, if it's an idea you want to bring up and discuss, I just don't have any substance to it. I don't know enough about exactly where it was.
Okay.
Okay, so that's my idea. Any other questions or comments on it, or Phil?
So, I wanted to revisit something that I think that Kathleen had mentioned the last time, which was that there was a program, I think it was in Berkshire County she mentioned, or maybe it was in Hampshire
Berkshire,
or
yeah.
Hamden, which I think the idea of it was to utilize existing resources and repurposing them for this idea. So in other words, the basic idea of having a multi-person vehicle, multi-occupant vehicle, which would go around the service area and pick up and deliver, is the same. But the twist is that they were using, maybe it was Council on Aging vehicles or some other vehicles, which weren't particularly well utilized. So there's rolling stock, so to speak, sitting around, waiting to be utilized. And this would take that rolling stock and put it into service. So I think that's an intriguing idea. I don't have any idea personally of how well utilized the Council on Aging vehicle is. And, maybe we can ask the Council on Aging to give us some information.
It's my understanding that that vehicle was given to them with a gift with restrictions that it only be used for Council on Aging.
Ah, okay.
That may have changed, but that was my understanding about 2.5 years ago when I last checked on it.
Okay. Well, if that's true, then, we're SOL.
It's certainly it's a fair topic to ask about all the various buses around town, including the school buses, although there are legal issues about that. But there are definitely vehicles around town that could be part of a program if it were rationalized, but I don't know what the restrictions or constraints are.
The other thing I want to mention, and I saw Lois' hand up, and that is that, one thing that's, I think, a virtue of the Council on Aging vehicle is it's relatively small. I think it's maybe like a 10-passenger vehicle or 8 or 12, something like that. But it's not school bus size, it's large van sized. So presumably it gets much better gas mileage if it's using gas and not diesel. And I think at least one thing that we could think about is that maybe we could acquire a vehicle or lease or, require the vendor to use a vehicle that's an electric vehicle. So smaller vehicle, an electric vehicle as opposed to a diesel vehicle, or maybe a hybrid vehicle, something like that. So I think that would be something I would feel good about advocating for, something like that, because of our sustainability goals, and just because I think that's sustainability is good.
Okay. Pardon me while I close some doors. We have,
Figure out
we
how
have
to
3
account
dogs
for
in the
dog
house,
barking
so-
in the minutes. Yeah.
Oh, right, dog barking.
Yes, they'll calm down in just a minute or so. Okay. Okay, so Laura, you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So first of all, Nick, I wanted to thank you for sending around all of the information about the promise and place of microtransit, because I watched that whole presentation and it was fascinating. First of all, the reason that I was thinking about it is because, Newton did a whole presentation about their microtransit program, and they did identify the fact that seniors have such different needs than the rest of the population that sometimes it is helpful to have sort of a separate service for them. So it may not be the worst thing that the Council on Aging vans are what they are and are for that service. One question that I had about ARPA and this program, and one of the reasons that I was asking about how this program might work with Crosstown Connect is because if Crosstown Connect is going to establish a fixed route around Concord, I think a microtransit companion program might be a really great option. So I'm not sure if dusting off this proposal is necessarily the best option if Crosstown Connect is providing a fairly similar service. It may be that we should recommend that they go back to the drawing board on the shuttle service and have that be more of a microtransit approach, specifically around the industrial districts in Concord, which is one of the things that have been highlighted as a great use for microtransit, and for our students. Because I know that from my experience on the sustainable of the sustainability subcommittee for the schools, that the late bus is not working very well for our students. And that one of the ways that we might encourage more participation in busing may be to have options for children who are trying to get to after school activities and need to get home after school activities, which I know after school activities are part of the ARPA, package. They want children to be able to engage in some of these after school activities that will help them catch up with lost learning. So I wonder if this micro transit idea for helping kids get to after school activities might be a really sort of appropriate use of these ARPA funds.
It could be. I think one of the issues we're going to have to deal with is what can be implemented fairly quickly. No, I'm not trying to say, extremely quickly, but I would lean towards a program where we've already gotten a grant approved to say, okay, that's a program that's pretty well defined. Whereas if we start going off and trying to figure out how to deal with issues like transporting, school-age students, there are a whole bunch of legal issues that come up in terms of safety. I mean, for instance, the state mandates exactly what school buses can look like, what they have to do, what they have to conform to. Could parents opt out of that and use other vehicles? Possibly, but we would have to get into research and all of that. That's why I'm leaning a little bit towards doing something that's already been defined, that serves something fixed, and we're not going to have to do a lot of research and new legwork to figure it out. That's my own cut. Yes, Kathleen.
Can you describe a little bit more what you understand about the timeline? Is it just that they need proposals in time, or do they need to spend the money by a certain time?
I'm not sure. I think we'll find out next week. My intention is that whoever from our committee wants to take part in that meeting of the select board on the 31st, jump in at the Zoom meeting, and that I would present whatever we conclude we want to present to them. And we will find out, we will get feedback from them about, timelines and, what they're looking for, because I don't have that in detail. Laura?
I don't quote me on this. I don't know this, but I do remember coming across something like funds don't have to be spent until like 2024. It's like we have quite a big window. So I don't think that we're in like a huge time crunch.
Yeah.
But I look forward to getting the official word.
The time issue may be more in terms of internal town competition. It's, if there are 30 projects that come forward, perhaps the ones that are most complete in terms of definition might get a better look than those that are going to take 2 years to get defined.
Mhm.
Yes, Michelle?
So can I ask a quick question? Question or suggestion? I'm not sure. It's just, not knowing how detailed this needs to be, but I at this stage, is it also a possibility that we can say, here's an idea, but we do have some outstanding questions that would need to be reconciled before committing, which would be, some of the things that have been identified, so that we can still bring it forward, but sort of acknowledge that, like, look, this is a newly formed committee. We don't have all the answers, but here's the idea and here's the things we need to explore.
Yeah,
right?
If we've got something we think is a great idea, but we don't have it fleshed out, I'm fine with presenting that if we're all in alignment about this is one we think is important and here's why. So yes, I'm looking for us to get feedback and for them to tell us what next.
Right.
Kathleen?
And similarly, Nick, it seems to me like we shouldn't necessarily limit our list, that we should really kind of put forth, whatever we feel is a worthwhile idea. And it sounded from, I believe it was Terry's email, that it's really just an exchange of ideas on the 31st, and that there'll still be time to kind of, hone the concept.
I'm fine with that as long as we think it's an important idea. Okay,
Yeah.
Because I think you quickly get into a discussion, you're going to have to defend your idea. And, I would expect to be asked, well, why do you think this is a good idea compared to that? So, I'm fine with ideas as long as we're aligned in them being important and why they're important and what's going to be involved. Dan, did you have something?
Yeah, it seems to me that if we agree that they're good ideas and we put them in a semi prioritized state, it's not up to us to make the final cut.
Right.
I think that they're looking for feedback from us. And, I don't think we have to over-engineer it in that regard.
Okay, enough of me. Let me put up see if I can do this. Put up a new. Remember how to do this. New. Oh no, not that. Slide. New slide. There we go. Okay, so who's got a topic? Who's
Well,
got an
just
idea?
before we move on, I just want to clarify what our process is for tonight for sort of moving for are all ideas going in this slide presentation going to the select board? Do we have to vote to say, yes, we're sending that to the select
Well,
board or no?
My suggestion earlier was that we come up with whatever we think are however many ideas and then look them over as a group and decide what we think is worth support, argue them
Okay.
out a bit and
you.
decide what's worth sending forward.
Okay, so we'll sort of do it all at the end. That's fine. I just wanted
Yeah.
to be clear about that.
Yeah. So,
Well, I could, may I add one on here then?
sure.
As
go
an
ahead.
idea. So my proposal would be to look into a microtransit option, a microtransit busing option, using an electric vehicle, targeting primarily workers, downtown shopping districts, and students. And so the drop zones would be, primarily the two downtown areas, the train station.
Sorry, I had trouble keeping up because of my.
Sorry,
Okay, so we're gonna
I'll start again.
say electric vehicle.
Using an electric vehicle, ideally.
Right.
Primary target populations to be serving would be students, workers, business folks, low income, obviously low income residents. And, I think that figuring out how it would serve folks with disabilities is important. And then the drop off.
Instead of low income, let's just say those needing service, those needing transportation.
Well, right.
Because
So
there's several classes,
non-car
right, that-
drivers.
Right.
But I think, one of the things with ARPA funds is we are trying to identify and serve populations that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. So I think you can call out
Right.
low-income families as low-income folks as being disproportionately affected.
Okay.
And then, drop zones in the downtown shopping districts to support tourism, and which is one of the ARPA categories, tourism and local businesses, the schools, after school activity locations, the library, the train stations, and the industrial areas, Baker Avenue. And just to be clear, this is not like a new school bus. It's just a service that students could opt to use if the late bus doesn't work for them. I'm not suggesting that we have this
Right.
be a school bus program.
Right.
Just like a public bus in a city that any child could get on if their parents
Yeah,
said that they could.
imagine it as something a parent would sign up for to get their kid from an after school activity to home like
Right.
that. So that's sort of outside of school transportation. Okay.
Laura, how does that work in terms of kids getting home if it's not, it's serving the centers and the train stations?
Yeah, is this an on-demand service that'll go out to the rural areas?
Yeah, I suppose that's a good question. I don't know, I'd be interested to talk to a microtransit expert. I watched the very thorough presentation that that Nick sent around on this topic. So I know what the Newton program looks like. So I know that Newton's already thought a lot about this. So Newton might be a good place for us to reach out to get more information, because they do have like a very comprehensive microtransit system, and it's all, you can request it either through an app or through a dispatcher's office. It's a pretty comprehensive program, so it would be a big program.
By the way, don't individuals in this committee, please don't reach out to other employees of other towns without coordinating, okay? Just get permission first. It's just that, for instance, the planning department here may be in touch with someone, and to get a phone call from somebody from this committee that they don't know, that's a bunch of volunteers, is not going to help unless we do it
A very
coordinated.
good point.
Yeah. So,
Just
okay.
a quick question.
Yeah,
Laura, do you recall, was Nicole Friedman the person who was running this in Newton?
Yes, she was.
Okay, all right. So just for everybody else, Nicole Friedman was the sort of the transportation czar under Tom Menino in Boston, and was responsible for kind of making it a lot safer to ride your bike.
this question on this, Laura, is this service, microtransit bus service? This is an on-demand service, so I call up if I want it, or is this fixed route service?
Yeah. I mean, I think especially if we're going to be pursuing Crosstown Connect as a community, this would be a great supplemental service to a fixed route.
And it serves remote areas, like it'll take you out?
Yeah, it's
To-
sort of, its purpose is to help cover areas that are not well served by a fixed route. So I wouldn't say stops. I think they describe them as drop zones. I do not represent myself as an expert on this at all. It was really just pulling from the materials. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we don't have to get into that level of detail, but yes. Okay, so what's different between this and the previous idea was that this is more an on-demand service. Obviously, it serves some of the same locations, the town centers, the train stations, but it adds in a component for on-demand serving remote areas, for low-density areas as well. Okay. Okay. Anything else on it, or another idea?
Well,
Yeah, Dan.
what's this? Yeah, what is the status of the shared bike setup that was being looked at here?
There was the town, Phil may know way more about this than me. There are active discussions, I think perhaps still ongoing, with towns like towns that are at along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, about a shared bike program that would be whose purpose would be, maybe you could take the train out to Concord, ride out to Framingham, pick up a train back to Boston. That was my impression.
So along the lines of the blue bikes in Boston is what it sounds
Yeah.
like with, okay.
Pick it up here, drop it there.
That's a very appealing topic from my perspective.
Okay, so we'll do a new slide on that. Oops, I did it again. It's here, new slide. Okay, so oh, I did that again too. Let's see, so this would be, so I can see two parts to this. One would just be within town. I mean, we're a tourist area, and people might want to pick up a bus at one of the train stations and go out to the national park. So bike share within Concord.
Well, the Blue Bike program, for example, operates amongst several towns. And, you know, I think that really does increase the utility of it. You know, for example, your idea of riding the Freeman Trail to another terminus with a train stop outside of Concord, that would be very appealing.
Yeah, and if you can pick up a bike. Yeah, well, Bedford and Lexington, because of the Minuteman bike path, are also other target communities to be involved. Because I think you need an agreement that if someone picks up a bike here as to where they can drop it off, whether they can drop it off in Bedford or Lexington or Framingham or just within town. I think
Well,
that's
within
part
the
of the contract.
Within the Blue Bike Network, I know you can pick up a bike in Boston and drop it in Cambridge. And I
Right.
think even possibly Arlington, is that true, Phil?
I'm not sure about Arlington, but probably Somerville.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, definitely Somerville.
and maybe in Brookline, places in Brookline too. Certainly, probably like the Longwood medical area. I guess Longwood's in Boston, but maybe Coolidge Corner. But yeah, that's the whole idea. Is it's a one-way trip if you want it to be.
Okay.
So I think actually the within Concord aspect is not a positive. I think it needs to be more inclusive.
If you recall, Erin mentioned something about the town taking either getting a grant or applying for a grant for a bike share program. So that may be in process already.
Who mentioned that, Phil?
Erin did, because we were
Erin
at
did.
one
Yeah,
point we
that's
were
right. Erin's
discussing.
the one who's brought it up. Yep.
Yeah, we were discussing things that were kind of in the pipeline from
Right.
her knowledge, and that was one of the items that she said was.
And
in
was that the
pipeline.
planning department who was working that?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she said. Okay. Yeah, Laura?
So I know, I don't know the status of it, but I know pre-COVID, they had installed a bike sharing program in Acton, which was, I believe, called Minuteman Bike Share. And so, this is the idea of us tying into one of these networks, either Blue Bike or Minuteman Bike Share, I think is a great one. I'm not sure if it would count under ARPA. I wish Norman was here to be our ARPA guide. But I just, as much as it would serve general tourism, I don't know if it would benefit our tourism businesses. We'd have to make a case for it, I think.
Yeah, let's hold off on that sort of
Okay, that's fine.
thing until we get all of the ideas out. Just sort
Sure.
of stay
We're in a
brainstorming mode.
brainstorming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Got it.
And I don't think it necessarily gets limited to tourism. I mean, the idea that you can pick it up at the train station and ride it to, the center to your job is appealing.
It's very true. Yeah.
For commuters, yeah.
I'll also say that I have had several conversations with the folks at the tourist center, and the person who runs the place, Beth, mentioned that last year she had a very steady stream of people asking about bike rentals. So, and she said to me over the course of time that she'd been working there, the request for bike rentals went up very, very substantially. And they had tracked that as well. And unfortunately, last year they didn't have anything to offer. So, and I think that I don't think there were any bike rentals in town at this point in time. At one point, I think that Husam at ATA had a few bikes for rent, but I think he got out of that.
Okay. Okay. I think we got this one. So next one, next idea. What did we see? Yeah, I'm sorry, Kathleen.
That's all right. I just jumped in. I sent you a few as well. And maybe I just talk and you can jot down and we can erase
Yeah, go
whatever
ahead.
doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
I'd rather do it this way. Yeah.
So I sent the list. The first part was sort of immediate / prior to town meeting, and then some ideas that I'm calling short term, but maybe they should be called long term, which are ideas to make sure we have funding in 2024. So I'll quickly just mention the immediate things that are not relative to ARPA that I think we should get onto our list to do in very quickly, like within the next few weeks or the next meeting, next few meetings rather. The first one is, well, both of them are developing for TAC to develop a position on the Historical Commission's Scenic roads byway warrant article. We should discuss it and decide what our feelings are and what input we may have on it, as well as the citizen petition for funds for the Reformatory Branch Trail feasibility study. So as
Oops.
a group, I think those two things are priorities for us to
Right.
handle. Yep.
Position
So I just want,
statements. So these aren't ideas. So I'll capture these and we'll put them aside for
Sure.
a moment. Whoops, I keep doing that.
Would this be helpful would it be helpful for someone else to take notes? Would that facilitate?
Well, I can keep it up in front of everybody so you can all see it, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's a value.
and Phil's taking notes.
Otherwise, I would not be able to keep track of what we're talking about. Scenic roads and the Reformatory Branch Trail.
Right. And so then relative to ARPA, I had two topics. One is to actually fund the transportation planner. The ARPA very clearly states that you can fund staffing, whether it's existing and bring them their salaries up or for new staff. So I think that's a really great opportunity to
I'm sorry, it says, say it again, what it says you can do with regard to funding staffing?
all sorts of things, whether it's bringing salaries back up if they had been reduced, or if you'd reduce staff to bring staff back up. But it also said that you could just plain add staff. So this is to fund the transportation planner, not the plan. So just change that at the top. Town planner.
Okay,
No, the very, very top is not to fund a transportation plan. It's
right,
actually
a planner, a
fund
person,
a person,
yeah. the
Yeah.
person,
Slide
right.
title.
the slide
On
title.
the transportation, well, I was gonna, okay, I thought there were gonna
No.
be sections to this, so this is just funded
No,
transportation.
this is,
planner.
yep, in and of itself. Yep,
Okay,
yes. So it
Okay.
was in Envision as a goal to get someone in place for this. So you can say it supports Envision. Yep,
Yeah,
and it will support us.
great idea.
okay,
Maybe as bullet points.
Resources.
Yeah, maybe those are the two bullet points, that it's supports Envision and supports TAC.
right, and maybe the way we present that to the select board is, this is a fundamental that we need to go forward
Mhm.
with anything. at all.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is a whole new slide. And this now is to try to fund some of the complete streets work. I think that, yes, we might want to still, it's a evolving definition and guidelines, but there has been some thought and effort put into some of them. And I took a look at the spreadsheet. And what I tried to focus in on is that they have the needs. There's a list of needs. So it includes safety, ADA accessibility, pedestrian mobility, bicycle mobility, transit operations and access, vehicular operations, and freight operations. So what I really focused on was safety, for sure, is an imperative, I think, to everything we do. As a licensed professional, that's one of the first things they say: you need to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So I think that addressing that just plain makes some of these complete streets proposed projects important. So as well as then some of the other prior in that list. So basically I went through and I highlighted, okay, what projects sort of cover a number of these things, including safety. So I sort of started ranking them and then looking at how much they cost and how complicated they are and who they might be affecting. So the first one that I identified was the Monument Square project that was on the priority list from DPW. So Monument Square project, I felt it was a heavily used space right in one of our Concord, one of the town centers, village centers. Safety was a big issue, as well as bike, ped, vehicle, and ADA, all of it. It has a fairly low cost. The price tag in the dollars that it was done in was 60K. And none of the improvements appear like they may be controversial, meaning they're fairly straightforward actions. They're handicap ramps, they're crosswalk striping, that type of thing. So I think that it's fairly straightforward project, but would have an impact on a large number of people in one of the village centers.
Right.
Yep. And then I have another one that, sorry, it was not in my email. The other location would be, they have identified a project that would, for Main Street, that would run from Sudbury to Monument Square. So again, a very significant stretch, meaning a lot of users, definitely affects village centers. That project is a large project. It's 200K. It would, it entails, I'll read some of it, curb extensions and for mid-block crossings, as well as at intersections, tactile warning, those on the curb ramps, again, more curb extensions to reduce turn speeds and such. So I feel that what I would suggest is that as opposed to Monument Square, where I would suggest funding the construction of work for Main Street from Sudbury to Monument Square, I would suggest funding the design work up through maybe 25%. This is a state road, so it will need, is it still a state road at that point? No.
Route 62.
Yeah. It's going to need to go through Mass DOT. So if we could, it can even be designed up to 25%. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because I think this will need a very robust community engagement process for making these types of changes onto that particular stretch of roadway. And if the design development phase of it gets funded sooner than later, that process can have that kind of time it will need to develop with community input.
Okay.
Did you say library to Monument Square or Sudbury to Monument Square?
Sudbury.
The same thing. The library's with the start of Sudbury Road.
Okay. So,
Is it?
Okay. Any other ideas? Laura?
So can I just jump in that
Sure.
I think that's a great idea, but I would propose it be slightly more ambitious and have it run from Thoreau Street to Monument Square. So, if you can imagine that Thoreau intersection that runs by a number of historic houses, and then by Concord Academy, and then by library, and then we're in the same place that Kathleen you mentioned.
Right. Now that's not, it wasn't on the priority. I'm looking to see that if that was on their priority
No.
list.
It wasn't. I mean, they had
It wasn't,
another
but
project.
I think it's a good one.
Yeah. So I would just throw that out as an idea. Just to kind of expand on your
Well,
idea.
it's hard to know where to stop. I mean, if you're going to go to Thoreau Street, why not go to the Y intersection at Elm Street, which is a significant.
So maybe we put out options, good, better, best, or the smallest, medium, largest, something like that. Because I agree, that's another spot where I mean the section that you just mentioned, Nick, actually has more elbow room to do stuff than the next section that I meant,
Right.
that I mentioned.
It's an interesting point, though. It's dangerous for cars too at that intersection.
Right. And you know, it's a spot that, as a cyclist, is pretty hairy.
So to add to what you're saying, so Main Street, Route 62 between Elm and Belknap is also on the priority list. It also had, sorry, this was my sort of ranking, 4 of the main safety issues and 5 overall
Right.
underneath their
It's
little
hard,
heading.
it's hard to know where to stop. I think
Yes.
that my own comment is that as long as you're on Main Street, you're dealing with something that involves the tourists a lot. Once you start going up Elm Street, it's more residents.
That was
which-
Elm Street, that was Main Street between Elm and Belknap. So I can't pronounce.
Oh,
that.
I see. Okay. I thought you meant Elm
Yeah.
Street itself. Oh,
No,
okay. No.
still Main
Oh,
Street. Yep.
Okay. Laura?
Two things here. One is that we might want to cross-reference. I haven't had time to do this. I've been meaning to do it. Cross-reference the complete streets list with the paving list for 2022. There are a number of projects that are on the docket that are going to be repaved this year. So if we can use if there are appropriate uses of this ARPA money to make those projects more complete. I think, for instance, about Barrett's Mill, which is quite a dangerous stretch if you're not an able-bodied person or you're a person on a bicycle, because there isn't a good sidewalk there and there's no shoulder for bicyclists. And that one is going to be resurfaced this coming year. Another place, which I know there's been a lot of discussion about in town, is Commonwealth Avenue. That's going to be repaved this year. And it's also like being designated as a cultural district. And there are a lot of businesses affected by that decision. So those may be 2 items to put on the complete streets list for further examination. And then there's also the approach to the high school. I mean, if you're thinking about ARPA funds, you know, students, businesses, access to healthcare is another really appropriate use of ARPA. So if there are any places on complete streets that are approaching the medical offices on Baker Avenue or Emerson, those would be good cases for ARPA funds.
So this is touching back on, I think, the conversation you were starting to get to as far as what might be eligible. I think this is a big question for the select board because there's if was any loss of revenue and they're trying to get ARPA funds for that loss, anything's on the table because it allows you can ask for that money, and anything that is a reason that the town wants to do with that money, they can do with the money.
That's
Mhm.
not, I don't think that's true. I think it has to be within, the guidelines are generous, but for instance, they're very generous when it says, you know, you can do a service and it doesn't define what a service is. So that's pretty good.
No, this is so it's broken down, the way I read it is broken down first as this loss of funds, and then it goes into some of these specific hardships, and then there's water, utilities, water, sewer, that type of thing. That first one is very, very open in its language, and it basically says for any municipal governmental use, whatever you governmental services, whatever you would do before, you could do again.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to bring up the language while we keep talking.
The only issue I have with this one, well, I'll hold it off until later. Stop. Full stop. Another idea? Anyone else?
Can we just clarify what the use of the slides are? We're capturing some ideas on the slide, but it's not a full list. So I just want to be clear about what we're using the slides for.
My intent is each slide is an idea we're going to consider and vote on whether to bring it to the select board.
So this slide should add what Laura just was talking about. because this is the
What's, I'm
complete
sorry, I
street.
missed it then.
Laura, do you want to go over your
Sure.
thoughts again? Yeah.
So Kathleen had proposed some of the complete streets projects. I'm not
Right.
sure. It was just Monument and Main Street from the library to Monument Square. So the ones that I would add to here are Commonwealth Ave, potentially Barrett's Mill. And then I'll look up the name of the other one. It's the road that approaches the high school. So let me look it up.
Thorough Street?
That's Thoreau Street.
I think it's Walden Street that they call out on.
Yeah,
Because Thoreau Street has a sidewalk. So it was the one that didn't have the sidewalk.
Walden.
but I would say that I would throw Thoreau Street back in there. That's my idea. So Thoreau is a main thoroughfare for students to get to the high school. It doesn't have a bike lane. Traffic moves relatively quickly. It does have a sidewalk, but I'm going to bet you dollars to donuts that the sidewalk is not in good shape all the way up and down. And I think my idea was to create a complete street using the tactical urbanism approach. And for folks who are not familiar with tactical urbanism, I will send you through Nick, I'll send you a link to the tactical urbanism website. But the basic idea is to create streetscapes through low-cost and quickly implemented improvements, like paint or like bollards or physical objects in the road that would
Right.
slow vehicles down and
Right.
provide a safe and comfortable place for pedestrians and bicyclists.
I
Because,
agree with that approach. So I
Pardon me?
think that's a whole nother conversation.
yeah, well, we may disagree, but I think this is a spot where having a complete street makes really good sense. And I think it's the very first item on the complete streets priority list is Harvard Street. And one of the rationales for implementing a project on Harvard Street is that it's a connection between the downtown and the high school. So this would be the missing complete street piece
Right.
between Harvard Street and the high school.
So I'm really warming to this particular slide because until now, we've had sort of complete streets at the conceptual level and a bunch of little projects. But this slide begins to talk about, hey, let's focus on complete streets where the tourists are, where the businesses have need, where the high school is, and all the streets in that area connecting them, because that would have a huge impact if we can begin to bring real complete streets to life in that area.
Right.
So that really
Right.
grabs my attention.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
not
going
an
to
easy
take,
project.
yeah, and it's going to take a good, robust community involvement because
Absolutely, absolutely. There'll be a lot of objections.
it's going
to
to take some
almost any
time.
proposal.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if we can't do complete streets here where it's so badly needed and would have such
Mhm.
an impact, we aren't going to be able to do it anywhere.
Right. And this
Yeah.
section, this whole area will also really test theories relative to our historic and natural character of our town and how we can, sustain those and achieve the complete streets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm
Yeah.
excited. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, in line with this, I'd like to suggest that we add Route 62 from the Bedford line to Monument Street to this list, because it's heavily used by cyclists. The sidewalk is kind of okay in some places, other places not. And it seems to fit well within the this program as well.
I would take that all the way to West Concord,
Yeah,
connecting the two downtowns.
Thank you. Thank
And
you for out here in the West.
And if
We're
you,
just saying Route 62.
Yep.
yeah, and if you want to take, you could probably take Barrett's Mill off of this list if you're talking about sort of strategic complete streets for connectivity. Barrett's Mill I just had on there because I know they're repaving it and it's a particularly dangerous road. So it sort of falls into the first category of like safety projects, but in terms of like strategic complete streets, it's sort of off on its own.
On the other
Laura,
hand,
I
it's
don't-
sort of low hanging fruit because, as you say, I mean, they're doing a project there. There is a sidewalk. I was on the sidewalk the other day and it's in terrible shape. And, you know, maybe that's a way of, you know, sort of goosing an existing project and, you know, expanding it to hit the safety issue more directly.
You know,
Right.
this also deals with the crossing Route 2 issue, which is,
yeah.
I was
It does,
wondering how we'd
yeah.
ever get to that.
Right.
It's good.
So
Nick,
Barrett's Mill might move up sort of on the same level as the Monument Square or just above it.
Well, I would say this
then
is
the
about all of it,
Next
the whole
group
thing.
is all of it.
It's all of it. Dan?
Yeah, I was going to say that that doesn't address the, you know, from the Bedford town line west to Concord Center.
Well, I said 62 north of West Concord. That's all the way to
North
the Bedford town line.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Laura, I'm looking at the paving list and I don't see Barrett's Mill on here.
Let me pull it up and make sure. I did watch the whole.
They are,
road
I know
preview.
it's on, they're doing what they call a restoration, which I
It's
think
a
is just
restoration. It's not a
it's-
complete.
It's a mill and
reconstruction.
overlay, basically.
Oh,
They scrape
no,
off.
overlay.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, well, they've got it in two segments here and the preservation techniques with microsurfacing and asphalt rubber don't include either. Oh, there's Barrett's Mill. Okay, you're right.
Okay.
Asphalt rubber. Sorry. It's out of alphabetical order.
Okay,
I would
Okay.
still stick to correcting what you've written for 62.
sure.
It's east of West Concord.
Is it east?
Yeah, it's
You
actually,
head
yeah.
east to get to Bedford.
If Route 2 goes east-west, how can it be east?
Well, it changes direction.
I
little
know, I
bit.
know. It goes to the coast, I know.
At least
You know,
it
there's a
doesn't change
place-
its name 3 times.
There's
That's
a place in Maine, I think I forget what town it is, Bucksport, I think, where
think
if you're on Route 1, you pass by a sign where there are state highways and federal highways, and you're on one section of road where some of these highways are going north, some of them are going east, and some of them are going west. And they're all in the same direction. It's great.
It's true.
Okay, any other
Could you-
corrections in this?
Could you indulge me and just put east of West Concord to the Bedford line?
Sure.
Thank you, Dan. You'll be indulging me too.
Okay. Yes, Laura.
So,
Laura?
yes. So I got the Barrett's Mill and all of this stuff about the repaving because I watched the road program Public Works from January 11th. And one thing, I'm not sure if this is the right moment to say it, but one thing that I did flag is that they showed the budget that they're proposing for the future at Public Works, and the investments in sort of the complete streets element are pretty low moving forward. So like in fiscal year 2025, it was only like $300,000. So I do think that if this fits within ARPA, this is a really great use of our effort, because it doesn't look like Public Works has this within their budget.
Right.
I second what Laura was saying. When they made their presentation at the Envision update meeting, it's clear that DPW has a lot on their plate that is not funded. So
Right.
if this can help,
Right.
I think that's great.
Okay. So another idea, anyone? Going once, going twice.
All right, you ready for my moonshot?
Yeah, moonshots.
2 moonshots. First, in looking at the Complete Streets funding list, I saw a lot of sidewalk projects. If you do a search on the spreadsheet, you see the word sidewalk comes up a lot. So, and I don't know whether this is eligible, but we had just completed the second item on the Complete Streets funding list, which was the crosswalk at Garfield Road and Sudbury Road and 7-Star. So my moonshot project would be to create a sidewalk from that location down to the bridge across the Sudbury River. So basically passing Heathsbridge Road, which brings you into Conantum, and linking up with the existing sidewalk that takes you over the bridge at Sudbury Road. That would allow students from the Conantum neighborhood and the neighborhood that is served by the Willard School if all the sidewalks were rehabilitated, to ride their bikes from that neighborhood to Concord Center, to Thoreau Street, and to the high school. So it's not super long, it's not super short, but if there was a sidewalk, it would be safe. At the present time, there's no sidewalk at all. It's a pretty narrow street, and it's a street that is utilized by large trucks, dump trucks, that are traveling very fast, notwithstanding the speed limit. So that's moonshot sidewalk item number 1. Something that I hadn't brought up in the past, and this may not be even within Concord's jurisdiction, but I would propose putting a sidewalk from where it ends on, it's actually Route 2A and 119. I think that might still be called Elm Street. When the Route 2 rotary was installed, a new sidewalk was extended for maybe, several hundred feet to close to where the entrance to the prison farm is. I would propose extending the sidewalk to where, and if there were several affordable projects built on the left side of the road as you're heading towards Acton. So one of the projects was built by the Concord Housing Development Corp. That's entirely affordable. And the second project was built by a private developer as a 40B, and I think there are a couple of affordable units in there. It's a little neighborhood. It's basically marooned on Route 2A. There's no way for kids to get from that spot anywhere, either walking or biking. So bringing a sidewalk all the way down to that little neighborhood and creating a crosswalk with a button flasher or whatever, I think would be very much appreciated by the people who live there. If that sidewalk were to continue further down to the next street, which is called, it's something like Cumberbund Road, something like that. Comerford Road. That's also Comerford Road. At the end of Comerford Road, there was a subdivision that was approved by the town several years ago with, I want to say, maybe 24 houses. And again, same thing. That's a subdivision that's now complete. It's occupied by families with children, and those children they have no access to the rest of the town other than being driven in an automobile. So providing sidewalks or safe areas for them to get out of that subdivision and out of Comerford onto an existing sidewalk would be, I think, in the public interest.
Did I capture that okay, Phil?
Yep.
Okay. Dan?
Yeah, two questions, Phil. Why would you stop it at the Sudbury River Bridge and not extend it all the way out to Route 2? Number one. And then the second question would be,
Just, could you repeat that again? I'm sorry, I just had a brain.
a
freeze.
moment. Okay. Why would you stop the sidewalk from 7 Star at the Sudbury River Bridge rather than extending it to Route
So
2?
right, so there is an existing sidewalk that was built over the bridge. And then that one hops across the street to the other side of the road. And then there's an existing sidewalk that on the other side of the street. That could probably be upgraded as well. And then the signal at Route 2 would need to be upgraded, but that's a state project. We would need to have MassDOT do that for us. And then, you know, at least a big moonshot, there is an existing sidewalk on the, I guess it's the west side of Sudbury Road that brings you all the way down to, I guess around Crosby's somewhere. And I can't remember whether it disappears or not. I know that there's a sidewalk that brings you over the railroad tracks. So maybe we should put sidewalk all the way from 7 Star to Thoreau Street. Good point.
Okay. And then my second question, well, about the sidewalk, well, I was going to say from the Comerford neighborhood, is it realistic? I mean, it's nice to put sidewalk in, but is it realistic that people from that neighborhood are going to walk to the center, which is probably several miles? I mean, I'm just wondering in terms of practical usage of it. Now, you know, as a cyclist, when I get on 2A at the Rotary, I'm itching to get on a sidewalk because nobody's walking on it and it keeps me away from the fast moving trucks. But, you know, if we were to extend it, I'd like to, you know, I think we can't really count on pedestrians being the ones that are going to use the sidewalk to get anywhere productive. It kind of dead ends at Barrett's Mill.
And possibly most bicyclists either, because you have to deal with the Rotary.
So
Well,
I can
that's
tell
a
you
key-
that I've had a number of conversations with people who live there. And they've, you know, again, people sometimes ask for things but don't use them. But they were very vocal that they wanted their children to be able to get out of there without having to be driven, no matter what. And so, yeah, it's at least conceivable the kids would be on their bikes.
We have to be sensitive to that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the bicycling component of it, I think, is probably more important than the walking component of it, in at least my personal use.
Yeah, they were pretty, you know, pretty articulate. You know, one gentleman in particular really felt as if, you know, because they were living in an affordable unit, that they kind of got the short end of the stick, that the town didn't demand that a sidewalk be installed. And, you know, I wasn't on the CHDC at the time, but, you know, having been serving on that board for a while, I understand why they just wanted to get that project done. They didn't want to add to the project cost, and, you know, there's limits to the subsidies. There's a whole bunch of issues. But at the end of the day, the folks who are actually living in the place feel like, geez, you know, how come they didn't put in a sidewalk for us? Because everybody else has a sidewalk. And this is a very busy street. It's not like it's a quiet side street. It's not even like Comerford, right? It's very busy. So
no, they've done the research.
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah. On the Sudbury Road sidewalk project, I think that for moonshotting here, and we're talking about sort of like connecting all of the parts of our town. The thing about, so I live on Garfield Road. I ride my bike every day as my main means of transport. So I know these roads extremely well. Sudbury Road is very wide and is a great candidate for complete streets and could be a great place to have a bike lane. But the other thing is that there's also a business district on Sudbury Road at 9 Acre Corner. And a lot of businesses there I know struggled during the pandemic because they lost a lot of regular customers that are commuters in that area. So in terms of a place that could be more connected, especially if you're talking about the connection to Willard, there's the new Bruce Freeman is right there as well. So more people being able to come out and go to the restaurants and the businesses at an old road to 9 Acre Quarter safely is a great thing. And then the other thing is that just on the other side of the Lincoln line, Lincoln has done a beautiful job of having really excellent walking and biking trails. So there's a lot of people at Mount Misery and on those. So if in terms of strategic complete streets project, the Lincoln line to Willard and the center of Concord is a very nice project. I would say it even though I live right there, I would say it's sort of second fiddle to connecting the two town centers of Concord, but it is a really excellent complete streets program.
So what would you add to this?
So instead of from 7-Star Lane to Sudbury Road, I would say to the Sudbury River, I'd say like from Route 2 to the Lincoln line on Sudbury Road, going through the business district at
9 Acre Corner?
At 9
At 9
Acre
Acre
Corner.
Corner. Yeah, that's cool. I like that idea too.
From 9 Acre Corner to the Sudbury River Bridge, is that it?
Yeah.
So it's actually from the Lincoln line, because as soon as you cross into Lincoln, you connect to a vast network of trails that would take you all the way down to the Lincoln downtown
Yeah, there's
center.
Yeah.
But
It may be a real moonshot. There's a very narrow bridge across the.
but it
Sudbury
actually
River there.
already has a sidewalk. It just
Does have
has
a
no
sidewalk.
connecting sidewalks
Does?
to it.
Oh, okay.
So you walk in a ditch and then you get to walk on a sidewalk over the bridge.
Right. That's right. Been over that many times.
It's one of those like, why the heck do we not have a sidewalk here moments?
Yeah. I think that's, I applaud your imagination and making it a Mars shot instead of just a moon shot. Laura, that's great.
Okay.
So this is, I'll just say as a aside, as kind of an editorial thing, we were talking about the impact. Kathleen had talked about the impact of the scenic roads bylaw. And I think we would have to, think about that, because my sense is there are places where in order to put a proper sidewalk, we would be dealing with trees in the right of way and stone walls in the right of way and stuff like that.
But let's
And-
defer that discussion until we discuss it.
Okay, fair
It's a
enough.
big one.
You're the boss.
Did have
And-
one other question about this other proposal on here, which was to connect. I was trying to figure out which exact housing development you were talking about, but I just wonder, I don't know if it's within the town's sort of scope to negotiate for trails, back routes, but it seems like some of these developments along 2A, if they could be somehow connected behind the prison farm via, Arsenic Hill Road, or I don't know what the topography is like there. I don't know
So
if that's
it isn't a question of, so the main issue is going to be that trails on conservation land exist incidental to the land being conserved. The land is created as conservation land to keep it in nature, and the trails are incidental. Any significant traffic on the trails would be counter to the purpose of the conservation.
I don't
plan.
know if there's conservation land there. My point
yeah.
is just that it
There is,
yeah.
there is, it's
There is.
extensive.
yeah, but there's like not much space between, it may already be that there's a path between Black Horse Place and Wits End Road, but just, I don't know if there's a point of connection that could be made so that there's a back route around the whole rotary.
Well, it's either private land, which we can't use, or it's conservation land, which is restricted in its use.
I see.
So, I don't think there's a good pathway through that. I mean, maybe there is, but it's an issue we're going to have to deal with in terms of, and I've had some discussions with the conservation, the natural resources director about it, because I do think we need some clarification about the use of trails on conservation lands, but that's a future topic. They're
Okay,
working on
great.
that.
Thank you.
Kathleen?
I guess I was just wondering if those neighborhoods can get to Bruce Freeman Rail Trail?
It's really hard.
Yeah,
Well, it's up
So-
2A and you have to go through Acton Indoor,
Yeah.
their parking lot.
Yep.
which is the way I access Bruce Freeman now, prior to the bridge being completed.
But along the lines Laura was saying, there almost should be a little cross-country way you can hook it up. I mean, I don't know who owns the
Yeah.
land.
Yeah.
You've got to
it's,
cross the street.
Well,
I
it's on the
guess
same
that would
block.
be,
You're on the same block. The Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is on the same block with that housing.
yeah,
Yeah, it is.
I guess
Oh,
I
that
would
housing.
try to, I think that that's another option, and this starts to go back to a big picture thought that I have, which is talking about feasibility between 2 points, as not necessarily, sometimes we're saying it needs to be right here, but sometimes we're saying we really want to connect these 2 dots, and someone needs to study what's the best way to do it. We might have our opinions, but it's just us. Sometimes you need a very thorough feasibility study. Where are the private lands, where are the conservation lands, what are the possibilities, someone to research it all. Because I think that particular, those neighborhoods, I applaud you, Phil. It's a very, very good point. They really are kind of on their little island over there. And finding some way, however it is, to connect them would be great.
So this is the south side of 2A then, is what the big complex there? Opposite from Comerford on the north
Yeah,
side?
yeah.
Okay,
South or west but yeah, closer to the Bruce Freeman. That's
okay.
Yeah, that's very, yeah, there are a couple of big lots between that housing and the Neshoba Brook.
yeah,
Interesting.
it's challenging. There's a lot of stuff.
My guess is the state owns those lots, just given the way the land is around there. But that's
Yeah, the
just
state
a
owns some of
thought.
it, and some of it's wet, some of it's private property. There's a private road
Okay,
there.
okay,
I'm
we're
not-
going
whatever.
too far in that direction. Let's
Yeah.
let's move on to any other ideas beyond this one? I think we've got this one. Anything else? No? Okay, so we've got
I do
7
have,
things here.
so
Yes?
we should maybe put Crosstown Connect on here. Purchasing a vehicle for Crosstown Connect, if that's within the ARPA funds. I would say that I'd also like to,
Okay.
given our town's sustainability goals, if we can make that an electric vehicle, that would be ideal. So that's kind of going back into busing.
Right. Let me put it up here. So,
I got the feeling that Terry wanted us to look at Crosstown Connect based on her
Yeah.
comments.
so just fund Crosstown Connect.
Yeah, and I think that she specifically said that we need to purchase a vehicle as a town.
That's at least one component of it. I don't know the details. Things
She
are
said
never
that-
simple.
she said
Things
that we
never
are-
that simple.
Well, what she said, just referencing back to what she said in one of our previous meetings, we are currently paying into the Crosstown Connect program. We have
Right.
a contract and we're paying in, but we can't make use of it because we don't have a vehicle. So it sounds like the limiting factor at the moment is the vehicle. I think it must be some kind of a public-private partnership where they've got like a service
I-
that's providing the drivers and we need to provide the vehicle. That was the sense that I got from her comments in one of our previous meetings.
Let's just say fund what's missing.
That sounds like a great plan.
Okay.
Very
And
comprehensive.
I have one other idea to put on the list here, just because I was watching that Public Works presentation. And one of the things that they said that they don't have funding for is culverts, and ARPA funds specifically call out water quality as one of the programs that they can fund. And
Yeah,
we did have.
I've communicated that to Alan Cathcart. As soon as I saw that, I pointed out to him that stormwater management is a major thing that they're willing to fund. So he said he
Great.
would take care of that. He would,
Excellent.
yeah. Okay, so get rid of this one then. Disappear. Okay, so unless there's another candidate. So we've got 7 ideas, which, let me summarize them on something else I can put up on the screen. So we've got the, I'm just going to call it the shuttle bus service, which, because that's what they called it when they originally proposed it. I'm just typing the titles of these 7 slides. Microtransit. Then we had the Crosstown Connect. Just put all of those together. Then we had bike share and bike share. Position statements. And transportation planner, complete streets. And guess we call it sidewalks, right? Sidewalks. Let me just pretty this up a bit. Okay, I'm gonna stop that share and start another one. Bingo, okay. Okay, so just so we can have all of the names in front of us at once here. Oops, misspelled. Okay, so how do we have this discussion? The position statements. So the position statements, that's a really important thing to do, but I don't think that's really got, my own thought doesn't have much to do with what we're going to propose for ARPA funding.
No, that's separate.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to take this one off the list for now, put it down, put it on another page.
Put it in the bike rack for later.
Ooh,
Okay, just put it down here. Okay. Transportation planner. So we would go to the select board and say, perhaps if we're going to do anything in transportation in this town, perhaps I would say, perhaps the most important thing we need is to get a transportation planner.
It
And we
is
just-
very,
because we
yeah.
can't manage any of this without a
Um,
person capable of defining what each of these things is in detail, writing RFPs, managing projects, managing, vendors or departments, coordinating among the departments. We're just not going to get anywhere without the planner.
Yeah, and
Comments?
envision very clearly spells out what this position is. So I can snack out the that text and send it to you.
So I'm going to put it up.
That
at
was
top
like
of
the
list.
number one thing. I
It
think,
was the
wasn't it?
very first
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, so that's at the top of the list.
Should we vote in favor of it? Because I'm ready to support that as number 1.
Yeah, sure. Does anyone just, let's do it this way, simpler, faster. Does anyone object to this being at the top of the list? Any of the committee members? No, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about priority. I'm not sure. The question is, does our opinion on priority matter? Or do we just place these in some sense, maybe we say one or two we think are the most important, but for the rest of them, do we just present them and say, we think these are all great ideas? And, it's really not our job to say, which is this one a little bit more important than that one? It's our job to help you understand what they are so that you can decide which one is more important. That's one thought. I don't want to waste a lot of time doing a priority exercise if it's not really going to contribute a lot beyond the first one or two.
I would suggest, I agree with that in principle, and would suggest that maybe if there are groupings or tiers, like to your point, if everyone's like transportation planner is a clear number one, and then maybe there's a tier 2 to tier 3.
Right.
But I agree that I think given these are concepts at this stage that would need to be vetted further and would need additional perspective, I agree. I think it'd be, I don't know if we have enough information, to be honest, to sort of, a prioritization may give a sort of false sense of, specificity that I don't know that we really have.
Yeah, right. We don't have enough information. That's a great point. We don't.
Why don't we put them in alphabetical order then?
We all agree that transportation plan is number one. Are we okay with that? And then beyond
Sure.
that, we'll just put them alphabetical order. I can see a
That sounds
grouping, by
good.
the way. I can see a possibility of grouping things too. The next three, shuttle bus service, microtransit, crosstown connect. What I would say about those is that these are all in the same domain. These are all about giving access to people, making it easier for people to get around, workers, people who may be disadvantaged, people who don't own vehicles, for visitors, for tourism. And the truth is, today, we don't know enough about the details about how these potentially overlap. And we're not sure, without a transportation planner, we're not sure exactly how these are connected together. These may wind up being one proposal. They may wind up being three things. We need to figure that out. But this is a vital need in the town.
Nick, I get what you're getting at. To me, I would describe it as this is all about transit service, that we're serving people with transportation. And I kind of feel I'm not very super clear on the difference between each of these. And I'm wondering if that's actually what should be funded, is the study of each of these and how they should be implemented. But I don't know if that's already been done.
I think at least for complete streets, there's been a lot of study done.
But let's just stay with these.
Yeah,
three
I'm
for
just
the moment.
talking about the transit service.
The transit,
Those
the three that Kathleen just lumped as transit service.
Sorry,
Which we
did I
may
say
not use that name.
did I say complete streets? Because I meant Crosstown Connect. I think Crosstown Connect has been, I think this,
Yeah.
the path has already been studied. I think it was pre-COVID. So,
Okay.
but I think that there has been some study on the Crosstown Connect program already.
Right, but my
Okay.
point was, we don't know how that overlaps with, sitting here today, I don't know how that overlaps with the shuttle bus service, right? Which is the
Right.
proposal that got approved and grant money funded for. And in my mind, I see microtransit as being sort of an extension of them. But again, there are boundaries and there are overlaps, and maybe it's all one service with different features. We just don't know. But what this town needs is a transit service. And we need to figure out, the planner, the planning department, the town needs to figure out urgently, and we need funding to figure that out. We need funding to get one of these going.
As a big fan of bullets and sub bullets, you could say transit service. It sounds like the shuttle bus and Crosstown Connect are both fixed route services, and then microtransit is its own category, which would fill in the gaps with. So you may want to lump them that way. Fixed route and flexible micro
If we
transit.
said this,
I think you probably want to keep them separate because they have different needs in terms of funding.
so what? But they're exactly what I think you said, which is they are connected together. They need to be connected together.
One would hope.
They better be. If we've got two competing services, we got a real problem. Argue me out of this.
No, I think that's that's right. We don't want to have competing services. We want to have complementary services.
Okay. And microtransit, the distinction here is, as you said, it's not necessarily fixed route. It's about serving the outlying areas. It's about on demand. It's about, it's about the things that shuttle bus service and Crosstown Connect aren't. Now, it may be that ultimately down the road, these are all done by one thing, by one department, by one service, but we don't know that. We just think it's important to make a distinction between these fixed route services and something that's going to serve the outlying areas and different needs.
Why not just have a heading for transit services and then list the variables in terms of fixed route, on demand?
That's useful for something, but we've got to suggest where they're going to spend money. And
All
I
right,
think,
well, that could be the delineators between these. I mean,
well, it could just be the descriptor.
yeah. There we go.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I would, let's jump to complete streets, because that's something everybody talks about.
It sounds like we were talking about sort of two groups of things, which are connection projects. Like we talked about how to connect that affordable housing development with the rest of town, how to connect the two town centers. So maybe complete streets, like strategic complete streets connections. And then there's sort of the separate.
I think you're right on. There's really two. So there's transit services, and then there's the thoroughfares. There's
Well, this is under the heading of complete streets infrastructure. There were sort of two threads to our conversation, which was one that was all about like these connecting corridors. And the other one was like
great.
Monument Square, sort of like downtown safety concerns.
What did we call that? We just called it complete streets, right?
Yeah, so we may just want to tease it out since I think we put a
we
lot
need a
on the
better
table.
So the way I imagined it in my mind is it's bringing the complete streets philosophy to the most important areas in town, to the areas where there's the greatest need.
Right.
We can wordsmith that, but.
Right. I think that the difference is actually the complete streets items were, we sort of gravitated of all of the complete streets projects that were on that list. We seem to cluster a grouping of them in one of the village centers, really, Concord Center, right? But then I think the second part of what you're saying, Laura, is then there's connectivity studies, really, which is saying we want to get, which is different than complete streets, which is basically saying we know there's a need to get from here to here safely. Let's figure out how best to do it. So I think that's a connectivity study or connectivity. Yeah, I don't know.
Or we could just call it connectivity infrastructure, because maybe it's not
Sure.
maybe we don't need a bike lane and a sidewalk and a road, but maybe
Right.
it's a combination of those things. And
Right.
I would just say that for complete streets, I would talk about both downtown centers, because West Concord might feel very left out if we don't talk about them.
Yeah, yep. So I think instead of sidewalks, we're saying the connectivity. Is that right?
Hold on a second. Are you seeing my Word document, right? That's,
Yes.
you just want to make sure of that, okay. So I'm sorry, I missed your question because I was fiddling with the documents. Save it.
I think under complete streets, then we had a conversation about connectivity. Is it separate, that separate from, is that right?
We had a conversation about connectivity. I mean, we talked about specific, very specific areas where we wanted to see the complete streets approach taken. That's what I took away from it. That's what I take away from it, which is that let's get real about complete streets and let's do it where we have the biggest need.
Agreed. I'm saying, I think there's the next item is the connectivity. Conversation, those
sorry.
specific connections. Question marks, someone else weigh in.
Okay, so we're bringing to the select board the topic of complete streets and what we think needs to be done. And we say we think there's been a lot of talk about it. There's just sort of a general understanding of the concept. But what we need to do is we need to bring this to our areas of greatest need. So now I'm not having trouble connecting that to what you're saying about connectivity.
Separate subject.
Okay, still within complete streets?
No,
I'm sorry if I'm being obtuse here, but that's me.
not at all. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining myself well.
Well, I do have a
Um,
clarifying question, which might be the point of confusion here. Kathleen, does complete streets necessitate all components of a complete street? Or is it flexible based on the situation on that road? Because I wonder if it's still bringing a complete streets philosophy, for instance, to that section between the Lincoln line and Route 2. It's just that it may not be all three components of a complete street. I'm not sure about exactly what I'm not sure what the right heading is for that. And I think that may be where Nick is having
Sure.
questions.
I mean, it is a very good question that I don't think has a very black line, but sort of a gray area between, we really need a sidewalk here, but we don't have this overlapping of transportation, multimodal transportation going on to the extent that we really need to clarify for safety reasons, for comfortability, all of those things, to have to put in a complete street design or program in that corridor. So I do think the fact that we wrote sidewalks demonstrates that, right? We know there are places from A to B, we need a sidewalk. Whether or not we need a whole complete streets, like this definitely needs bike lanes, or it definitely needs the curbs or anything else. It's sort of, how far over to complete streets do you really go? I think there's a lot of gray in the middle. But I think sidewalks, specific sidewalks, to me starts going into streetscape.
So
It's hard, I don't know. Phil, do you have a 2 cents? Because I know you deal in this language as well.
I think that at least with respect to what we sort of that process that we went through of starting out at a specific place and ending up at a specific place for a specific reason. What strikes me about the conversation, we all came up with the idea of sidewalk because it allowed people to get from those specific places without being in a single vehicle occupant car safely and comfortably, right? I think that's at the bottom of the complete streets idea, is that the streets and the streetscape, or maybe the extension of the street, what's in the public right of way, is not the exclusive provenance of motor vehicles, right? So that's
Definitely.
the philosophy.
Mhm.
How you get from where we're talking about, if you want, let's use Garfield Road and Sudbury Road as intersection as the focal point. How you get there to at one end, 9 Acre Corner, which I love. I think that's awesome. I, I think Steve Verrill will like that idea. And at the other end, to the high school, how you actually accomplish that so that people can get from 7 Star and Garfield and Sudbury Road without being in a car safely and comfortably. That's the big picture. That's if it's a sidewalk, if it's a magic carpet, if it's a boardwalk, if it's a transporter beam, I don't know. But
Right. It's multimodal.
So
it's
let's see.
multimodal, right? It's some alternative to having to get into your car, turning the key. That's how old I am, turning the key and, firing up your internal combustion engine car. So
Yeah.
is that a sidewalk? In this case, probably, but maybe not,
Well,
maybe
it
there's
sounds
somewhere-
like from that description, it probably should just live under complete streets, just in terms of the philosophy of a multimodal approach to
Right.
redesigning infrastructure.
Agreed.
Okay.
I agree.
So I think one of the other things that, and this is maybe not really within this discussion, but maybe it is complete streets it's a philosophy. It's like you said, it's a philosophy.
Mhm.
My impression is that our great folks at CPW may or may not buy into that philosophy. They may or may not be, that may be something that feels totally comfortable for them. Or it may be something that they've never really got trained in engineering school and never really encountered until they.
I think the biggest issue in the short run is their lack of funding to do anything that ambitious. And
Yeah.
that-
They
that-
actually, yeah, they've talked about the fact that they have actually gone to the Mass DOT seminars, which I've actually spoken at. And
And they're great, actually.
that's a great starting point, I would say, for the philosophy of complete streets. And judging by the priority chart, right? And we were all wondering how that got to be the priority list and what order. They are, that list is specific to, we need a curb ramp, we need a crosswalk, we need a sidewalk, or we need a bike lane. I lean more towards Boston's Complete Streets philosophy, the Complete Streets Coalition, which is much more, and AARP for that matter, which is much more about the comfort of all users and not just the safety. So there's a lot of philosophy there.
Right. And I am very interested in that stuff too, especially.
Okay, so let's let go of philosophy for a bit. So we're going to the select board and we have to give them a recommendation where we think money should be spent. So I've tried to rephrase the first sentence there, bring to bear the complete streets philosophy on our areas of greatest use. Now, why am I not saying need? Because need is arguable, right? Where the use isn't so arguable. It's where the heaviest traffic is, it's where the businesses are. And for the first thing we pointed out, which was the stuff around Monument Square and the roads and Route 62, that's where the action is. And so I think you can make a good case that, whether it may be enormously expensive, and that could be a big barrier, but it's sort of unarguable that that's an area where we need to pay attention.
I think it's because it's an and, that it's greatest use and there is the greatest need. Because
my neighborhood needs it more than your neighborhood. Go away.
no, based on the chart that they have, they were very specific about this has safety needs, it has accessibility
Okay,
needs,
so
it has bicycle. So there's some hard data.
Okay, so you
very hard
say,
data that went into
the previous Complete Streets list of 52 projects sort of supports that with some data.
that need, right?
That need. Okay, great.
As
Okay.
opposed to use.
Well,
So it's an
So they have-
and.
and
That's
I
how
want to throw a monkey wrench in here before we get into the argument about and need. I'm a little worried that this language is more vague than the select board is going to want from us. We've come up with some really specific proposals, and I think that they should see those. This is a regurgitation of Envision Concord. Like,
I'm
we
just-
should put in complete streets. I think that we should call out the fact that we discussed, that are existing complete streets projects that serve the needs of small business, school, students, commuters going to and from the train stations. And we had a specific list of streets that we suggested in there, because given short timelines, I think they want something specific from us. They don't want to have to go into complete streets and try to interpret
Yeah,
this vague
I
language.
didn't mean to suggest that this is the slide they're going to see and it's all the data they're going to get.
Right.
I'm just trying to organize our discussion here and figure out how to, someone suggested clumping it a bit, and I thought that was a good idea. So that's the only reason I've clumped it, so that we can have a discussion about what we're trying to communicate and how to get it across. And I totally agree with you. That detail we had on the, Monument Square and Main Street, Route 62, the impact on businesses, Commonwealth Ave, all of that needs to be gotten across, because it doesn't mean anything without specifics and without drawing a picture in their heads about what you're talking about, the streets they know. So,
Right. So my point is that I don't think we need to argue about bring to bear on our areas of greatest use and need, because I think we should talk about the
Yep.
needs that we've identified and the streets we've identified. And I don't think we have to get into the general
Okay.
language.
well, I would still say this, because I think you do need something to sort of tie it together and say, well, why here and why not there? Well, this
Is
is where
this
all
the-
the traffic is. This is where the need is. It's been identified. There's a reason we're telling you that this is the area that needs it the most.
But is this the list of the projects, or is this the argument for the projects? Like,
So
if this is
what
just a
I'm-
list
okay.
of the projects, then I think we
So-
should be specific, like Laura's saying.
Yes, yes. So, yes. So let's talk about a way to sort of vet this before it goes to the select board. So we're not going to have another meeting before the select board session on the 31st. What I would do, which I propose does not constitute any violation of open meeting law, is I'll take whatever we finish on this slide, plus the other stuff we talked about, to go with it. And I will send that around and say, this is what I would put up before the select board. And you're all welcome to be there and help me refine it in real time when they have questions or get confused. But so I would send that around, and please, 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 you can send me feedback on what I'm doing, okay? On these slides that I'm going to send you, and say, this needs this, or this is wrong, or correct this. Just, I would really appreciate that help. But I think that's the only
Yeah.
practical way we can do anything between now and next Monday.
I would agree, and thank you, by the way, for offering to synthesize all that, because that is a lot. But I think if we were to craft what's going to go in front of the select board, like, we'd all be here till midnight. So I think.
Well, I mean, we could,
it's hard
actually,
to
we could break this
co-author
up.
all that.
We could break this up into 2 or 3 things, projects. If anyone,
Yeah.
as I've said before, I'm retired. I have a little more time in my hands than the rest of you. If anyone wants to grab one of these, like the complete streets one, Kathleen, you have the time?
Yep.
Okay, so some slides that draw starting with what we're doing tonight, a concise presentation of this section explaining why we think this needs to be done. And I would draw in under the complete streets, the stuff we said about Monument Square on that slide, plus the things we said about the sidewalk extensions, all of that under complete streets. So there'd be two parts to it. Now, I personally
Can
think
you
the
send
thing
those
that's,
slides?
I will send these tonight as soon as we get off. I think what's weak about the sidewalks one is why these sidewalks and why not my part of town? Okay. This is basically one part of town we're talking about. So I don't think it's a strong case in that sense. I mean, I can see the need, but why here? Why not Virginia Road, where I used to live, in that part of town? Why not?
I think the answer is, Nick, that there are hundreds of single-family homes with children in them. Okay, and you got to start somewhere. Every journey starts with a single step. We're not
Okay.
proposing to put in a sidewalk that would serve
If
a handful of
that's your
houses.
argument, if that's your argument, don't go past 9 Acre Corner to the Lincoln Town line, because there are no big developments out there.
Right, but that's a relatively small add-on to several business nodes between neighborhoods that have hundreds of people living in them. And that's really what we're talking about, is finding ways for people to get
My point is,
places.
what's the benefit? I can see the benefit for an avid bicyclist, but if you're talking about a need for the families with children and wanting to get somewhere, I don't see the extension from 9 Acre Corner to the Lincoln Town line as being,
they are sort of two separate projects. And I suggested that as an add-on, mostly because I think that it would serve the businesses at Old Road to 9 Acre Corner to have a connection to Lincoln, because, lots of visitors to Mount Misery, lots of walking and biking visitors to Mount Misery might use those. But I think that I think that there's a point that those are separate. You could talk about sort of strategic neighborhood connections for children, and then you could talk about sort of like larger connectivity issues, like the Bedford line to West Concord, the Lincoln line to Concord Center. Like, those are more like strategic connections. So I see them as two sort of separate buckets, if you will.
yeah, anyway. I think you can also pitch this as this is a starting point. This is just the first one. It's because, we want to do this philosophy in other parts of town too. But the reason we're doing here is the family density and whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's more connectivity than family density. If anything, the little neighborhoods with dense housing have that's more of a safety issue than it is a connectivity issue.
Right, it's a safety issue, but what I heard from Phil was the reason to do it here, as opposed to some other part of town, is because of what I heard is the density of the population. There are lots of homes, lots of families living in that area. So we're talking about connecting them better to this town, into the town, and across Route 2 and to the high school, other areas.
Yeah, but then you raise the issue of Virginia Road, which you need a sidewalk there to get anywhere. And it's not just to the center of town.
They have a sidewalk with 5 utility poles in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Right.
They were
Nick
gifted.
knows that sidewalk better than anybody.
Okay. Okay, that's enough. We've flayed that one. So Kathleen, you're going to take that one on, the Complete Streets one. I'll volunteer to do the one on the transit and make the case for the planner. So, okay, so Kathleen will send out her comments, her presentation, and I will send out mine, and we will endeavor to do that as soon as we can so that there's enough time for people to give us feedback and digest it. And Kathleen, it's okay for me and you to ask clarification when people send us feedback. We're not developing a proposal. We're just trying to articulate what we've already talked about tonight is my position.
Okay.
That's deliberation,
Okay.
though, isn't it?
Pardon?
Isn't that further deliberation?
Or is it just?
Well,
presentation?
it might be getting a little close. I don't know. Just send us the feedback. As long as we don't ask you for clarification, I think we're okay.
So who does it go to, Nick? Everybody or just to you?
No, just to me and Kathleen, whoever sent you
Nope,
the stuff.
Just to Nick. Nick, you
It
can
just
send
goes
it
to
to
Nick.
me.
Yeah,
Okay, send it to me. I will forward to Kathleen her stuff. Okay.
thank you, Kathleen.
And is somebody taking bike shares, or are we taking that off of here? Is that in the bike rat?
It doesn't seem to fit to me. I don't know.
I like bike share.
I like
I like
bike
it
share.
too,
I
but
think someone should take it up.
is there an investment?
I like it too, but I don't think there's an investment. I think it's attracting a private. I think there need to be a lot more research done in it. But
So,
Well, Aaron said
I'll take my hand and put it up and say, I'll do the research as to what's going on, because I think there is some existing plan of action And, you know, we may just leave it off because the plan of action is just going to be implemented. There's nothing for the selectmen to do. It's already a done deal. So why
It's
don't I do
important.
that research?
I
It's
think Beth,
important
I
for
think
us-
Beth.
I feel it's
Phil,
very
I think,
important for us to have it out there.
What?
I think Erin said that Beth, from the tourism and
Right.
whatever, economic vitality person is the one who's driving that.
Okay. I'll call it.
Okay, and then, so are you doing this with the intention of having something for me to present, or for us to present, or?
I think it's just for everyone's edification. If
Okay,
it
great.
turns
So
out
this
that
is-
it's not going anywhere, I think we should have a bike share program.
Okay,
And I
so
think
if
it
you
should
could
be a
just send
regional.
me this, you do the research, send me the research results, and we'll bring it up, put it on a future agenda.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've done the main thing we need to do tonight. Before I ask for comments from the public, looks like Terry didn't make it. So this is something I was planning on saying, and I'm not sure how it's affected by what we've done tonight. Maybe it's helped a lot. What I was thinking, I was looking at what Kathleen did on the Excel spreadsheet she did on the stuff from Envision. And I was thinking that to organize our thoughts and our plans and our projects in the future, it would really help, at least the way my brain works, it would really help to have a picture of what we think the wonderful future would look like in 10 or 15 or 20 years when we've done all these things that we think we should do. Now, Envision Concord begins to do that because in the big ideas, it has very specific stuff. So for instance, there's that whole picture of, someone takes a train into Concord and there they get some sort of a transportation, a bus or something that brings them to the national park. And then later in the day, they go someplace else on this thing. And there's a whole, and somebody else drives into town and they park in a remote parking lot. So that's the beginning of this picture I'm talking about. And you can imagine, so that the picture has these different aspects of, there's that sort of emphasizes the transit, the capabilities. But I can imagine a picture that talks about from the point of view of a bicyclist coming into Concord, right? Or living in Concord, and what you want Concord to look like in 15 years. So if we could, I don't have a complete, set of things, but I'm imagining some sort of document that paints the future for us, so where we know where we want to go, right? And what it might look like. How would that be in Concord? I was in Davis, California, actually, for a transportation conference about 4 years ago. And
Just because we're short on time, can we clarify? Are we putting this on a new agenda? What?
No, it'll be on another agenda. You hear what I'm blathering about. Just if you have any thoughts on it, send it to me. Or we'll just put it on an agenda for the next, I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
So
Okay.
we're going to have an agenda where we sort of present visions for Concord's future.
2050.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so
And-
any other comments from the committee members? Okay, any comments from the public? Mark,
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Another great,
Mark Galis, 62 Prescott.
Yes,
Road.
Mark Galis, 62 Prescott Road. I should have a little sign to put up. But yeah, great meeting, a lot of important stuff. I do like the Route 62 from end to end concept because it's so includes so many different important things. I sent you, Nick, a letter about OML Point. And I was going to just mention that and say, pass it on to people. But unfortunately, some of the things that were just being discussed about people sending things to you or you sending things and them commenting leads me to just read to you. Just, this is a thing to learn and engage about. But let me just read something off the Attorney General's Division of Open Meeting Law. frequently asked questions. May a public body member communicate with other public body members over email? Yes, but only in limited circumstances. A member of a public body may email other public body members only on matters in the jurisdiction, so long as the email does not reach a quorum of the public body. Communications between a quorum of public body on matters within the jurisdiction must occur within a public announced meeting with an agenda. So there's some more things in the letter. If you send it back to everybody, everybody can kind of make their own interpretation, but I would be careful, like you could assign particular slides to individuals. They could put them, do their own thing and, have it ready for the meeting. But certainly the back and forth is a problem, but there's this word about deliberation, oral, written communication between or among a quorum. So as soon as a quorum's involved, it's a deliberation. And they talk about opinions, but, choices about how to prioritize things can be opinions too. So anyway, I'm just trying to share what I interpret from it. So I sent you something that you can share with people. It's easy to follow up with the actual division of open.
When did you send that, Mark?
I think I sent it earlier in the meeting, about an hour ago.
Oh, today. Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
today. Yeah.
Trying to figure out if I'd missed it already. Okay,
No.
Okay,
Anyway, thank you.
thank you very much. Anyone else? I see no other hands. Thank you all, except entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Move to adjourn.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, Michelle. How do you vote?
Agree.
Jan,
Yes, I agree.
Laura,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
and Dan said yes, and I'm an I as well. Okay, did I miss anyone?
No.
No. Okay, meeting is adjourned. I guess whoever shows up at the select board next week, we'll see you in the Zoom meeting.